Good morning, colleagues, once again. Thank you for joining in today's session. My name is Kosie Tunduli. I'm from the Research Capacity Development Unit. I would like to welcome each and every one of you and thanking you for taking your time in attending today's workshop titled Storytelling Technique for Research Presentation. Our facilitator for today is Dr. Nell Levy. Dr. Nell, thank you for joining us. Colleagues, before we can move on, firstly, I would like to notify or let you aware that the workshop is recorded. This is for the purpose of keeping the record of all the workshops we are providing, as well as to provide resources of each workshop we are presenting to all our participants. So you can access the workshop recording as well as the presentation of this workshop at any time. Usually we upload the resources within or after 3 days of the workshop. We upload on Moodle communities, which is the supervisor community, as well as the PDRF community. Another platform that we are actively in right now is the RCT management system, which is the system that is available and being integrated to Ulink. So you log into your Ulink, and then under services, the last option is RCTMS. That is where you will be accessing all our workshops, be able to book upcoming workshops, access the previous workshop recordings, as well as download your certificate of attendance. Before I can hand over to Dr. Levy, just to go through some housekeeping rules, please make sure that your mic is muted when not speaking. However, we encourage active engagement. So if you do have a question, just raise a hand or type under the chat, and I will notify Dr. Levy that someone has a question. Dr. Levy, if I may ask, would you prefer to take questions at the end of your presentation, or you'll be taking them along the way as you go with your presentation?
You can notify me along the way. I don't mind.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that.
Will you be able to share my presentation? You have it once yours is finished here.
You can start sharing. I think it's far from where, because you shared it earlier, so I think
perfect.
Better you share, and then I'll monitor the chat as well as all the participants. So if because you'll be on presentation mode and you won't be able to see some participants' comments or their questions, so I'll notify you as soon as the questions come. Okay. Colleagues, also I'll be sharing the feedback evaluation under the chat. We kindly request you to fill that feedback in. Now the certificate will be generated via the feedback, as well as if you joined in under RCT management system, you can easily access your certificate immediately after the workshop. So we encourage you, colleagues, to fill in the feedback, and you will be able to generate your certificate after that. We kindly request colleagues to fill in their correct information when filling in the registration form or filling in the feedback evaluation. That's help us in terms of providing the correct certificates to all our participants. So if you do have any questions, or maybe you received a certificate for March and April, which was incorrectly, and then we kindly request you, colleagues, to send us your details, your correct details. However, we encourage everyone to fill in the register form first, so that is where we get all your information. So if you are looking for any certificate for March and April, however you did attend one of the workshops, you are more than welcome to email us on supervision course, and then we will check with our attendant register and then be able to send you a certificate. A quick reminder that all pre-workshop certificate will be shared by end of this week, so we are not yet provided the certificate of attendance for April. However, for all workshop, it will be done by the end of this week. So with that being said, colleagues, now allow me to introduce our facilitator. We are honored to have Dr. Nell Levy with us today. Dr. Levy is a lecturer in the Department of Strategic Communication. He brings a deep passion for all areas of communication, with particular strength in helping students and researchers connect more meaningfully with their audiences. Currently, Dr. Levy is actively engaged in important research publications on student assessments and gender-based violence, GBV, further demonstrating his commitment to impactful academic work. So with that being said, colleagues, and without further waste of time, I now hand over to Dr. Levy. Dr. Levy, you can start your presentation. Thank you for honoring our invite once again.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm sharing it.
Yes, you can start sharing.
Okay. Can you all see the presentation?
Yes, we can see your presentation, Doctor.
Okay, perfect. Right, so welcome everybody. And we're going to look at storytelling techniques, and I'm specifically going to give you a framework that you can use with your honors, masters, and doctoral students that can help them unfold their learning as they go through various stages. And it's also focused on critical reflection. So this is very much a framework, a practical framework that I want you to take away with you at the end of the session, which will help you in dealing with the research journey, the story research journey of your honors, masters, and doctoral students. So, relevance of reflective thinking and storytelling. What is reflective thinking? Can you all see my PowerPoint? Can everyone see it? Just for some feedback, can you all see the saying by Margaret J. Wheatley?
Yes, Doc, we can see your presentation.
Perfect. Without reflection, we go blindly on our way, creating more unintended consequences and failing to achieve anything useful. So if you think of postgraduate research, it's definitely a reflection of the student's journey as they progress through various stages, and they are telling a story. Their argument is unfolding. And if you take right at the top at the doctoral level, they are making a contribution to knowledge based on both their research and their argument. And the way they bring it together is their story. So in today's session, I want to specifically focus on what is the story, what are the techniques that we can use to actually unfold that story better. Even if it's a master's or an honors student, how can they develop their research pathway to enable them to constructively go about telling their story? So storytelling requires definitely a self-awareness. We need to be conscious of what we do. And we also have, one of the techniques in storytelling is open-ended. You allow the student to explore their own perceptions, ideas, values that are relevant to a topic, and the way they interpret the research is often based on their own opinion, their own perception, their own ideas, their own beliefs, or their own values. So we need to be aware of our own beliefs and our values, and we need to challenge our habitual ways of thinking. So storytelling really is about developing an open mind towards understanding how the student thinks and how their thinking should unfold, and how we as supervisors should direct that thinking throughout their research journey. So it's about really making sense of the world around us and reflecting the way we see the world in a way that the student can interpret that. So we could have an open-ended approach, or if the student is doing a very scientific study, it could be a closed-ended approach, but it requires a level of self-awareness, a level of exploration, being able to explore what's happening around us, to be able to be open to how that story unfolds. So critical reflection allows students to explore concepts on a deep level, and this is particularly important at master's and doctoral level. So if you're supervising master's and doctoral students, you need to understand that they are researching their topic at a very deep level, albeit narrow, but it's very deep. So it allows them to actually explore their topic at a deep level and to link these concepts to their own experiences. So what I'm saying is I'm encouraging you, I'm going to show you a technique that we you could use to help your postgraduate students unfold their thinking in terms of their own experiences and giving them their own suggestions on a field or topic, particularly in the findings and recommendations. So here is the techniques, and I want to just give you a little exercise to do. Ask a close friend of yours to say one word that best describes you. What is this word? So the first element of critical reflection is the word what. So when students are doing an honors, master's, or doctoral study, what are they researching? What is their research problem? The what, there is so much information that goes into the what. And what I suggest you do is, as a research technique, ask them to structure their thinking with a word what. What are you researching? What is the latest literature available on this research? What is your unique contribution to the research? So give the students exercises with the word what. So if we get back to our example of a friend, if they choose a name that's synonymous with you, they obviously have thought about you as a brand and they've reflected that you're this type of person, and therefore they've identified you with this particular name. So what is very important? So what does this word mean for your personal brand? So what is the next question? So in terms of storytelling, we use the words what, so what, and ultimately now what. So if you think about yourself, so if we talk about you as a personal brand, and if you had a friend, I'd ask them to ask you to identify what is the word that best describes you. So what does this word mean for you as a person in terms of your personal brand? And now what will you do to market yourself? You can see that there are lots of ideas that are coming. If you actually did this as an exercise, and we don't really have time to do it today, but you can do it in your own time, just to think about how many ideas you would have about a particular person or yourself and what you could do to market yourself as a brand. And it comes down also to postgraduate study. When the students are exploring various research techniques, they're going through these questions. By going through what, so what, and now what, they can unfold their story. You can get them to write the entire literature review on what is the latest literature available. So what does this mean for your study? And now what will you do to make a unique contribution to the field? So these techniques are storytelling techniques, and they come from Pearson 2024. They're storytelling techniques that use critical reflection as an assessment tool that you can use basically on any subject you want. You could even use it in tutorials. If you're running tutorials for your students, you could have what, so what, and now what. Or you could run your lectures using what, so what, now what as critical reflection on various topics. So let's look at some aspects of critical reflection. What does it allow students to do? Critical reflection allows the students to analyze their own feelings, ideas, and thoughts about a topic or issue. Critical reflection allows students to express their understanding of various topics. And critical reflection provides students with a link to their own understanding of a topic. And it's very much their own understanding which is important, because in a postgraduate study, students are contributing their own understanding to the course topic, and they're developing that understanding by the way they reflect on the work that is being presented. So very important. I'm going back to the slide. Critical reflection allows students to explore concepts on a deep level. And that's very important. The what question can go very deep into their study. You can ask them to write a story. And if you think about postgraduate study, it's unfolding continuously as a story. So students write their own experiences. They write about their own perceptions, beliefs, values, ideas, even their lifestyles. They integrate this into the study through a whole process of deep level thinking. And critical thinking allows students to give their own suggestions also on a field or topic always. So again, looking at this, what, so what, now what, it could be, we could ask this in a different way. If we're looking at storytelling, instead of asking about a person in your life that you know very well, we could ask about a brand, a specific brand. What is a personal brand that you identify with? So what makes them unique? Now what have you learned from them about your personal brand? And you can take any theory and you can break it up into what, so what, and now what. So during this presentation, I'm going to break up those questions for you, the what, so what, and now what, as elements of storytelling, which then you can hopefully apply to any presentation, any postgraduate research journey that your students are facing. So what's important is to keep an open mind and suspend your voice of judgment. Have a mindful presence, and this is so important. Having a mindful presence, remember the story is unfolding. A dissertation is a projection of research at a specific stage in time, but it's continuously unfolding. So the story that you are writing about, the story that your student is writing about, is continuously unfolding, and we hear ourselves through others' ears. It's opening us up to genuine inquiry, the what, so what, and now what. And if we talk, for example, about brands or personal brands, we can look at the what, so what, and now what, or we could look at the what questions, and here's some examples. Storytelling about yourself. What makes you special? What are your greatest strengths? What differentiates you from others? How does your uniqueness translate to your value? What are your most significant accomplishments? What do people come to you for? What do you want to be known for? What do you want others to think of you when they hear your name? So these are different what questions. And I'm suggesting that you brainstorm these questions and you go through a lot of different processes with your student with the word what. And you actually get your students to write up their study. Start off by writing up their study with the what, and then go to the so what and the now what. So here it is, the levels of reflection, the cornerstone of critical thinking is what, so what, and now what. And this is what storytelling encourages you to do. And in terms of the research journey, what I suggest is that you take your students along this journey. Ask them to identify what is your topic. So what is your research methodology? Now, what are your findings? And then go through this process in terms of a story as it unfolds and look at the various implications of these findings as they go through the story, and let it unfold and keep going like a circular wheel through the what, so what, now what, and allow it to unfold as the student's journey unfolds and they go through this intense process. So you can ask me if you do have any questions, please stop me and I'll try and answer them for you, because I like to, sometimes questions pop into your head and there's something you want to ask now and it makes relevant to everyone else. And so if you do have a question, I'm more than happy to answer it. So let me know. Can you all hear me? If there are any questions, please let me know. But what I suggest you do is you go through this process of what, so what, now what with the student study as they're progressing, as they're going through this. You're thinking about what, so what, and now what. So what are the benefits of storytelling and critical reflection? So it allows the student to deconstruct, and specifically their research problem. It allows the student to deconstruct their research problem and to think about what are they actually doing in their research? What is unique about their research? And then it also allows them to bring various theories together, to theorize, and then also to think otherwise. So this process, by going over it again and again, and through repeating it continuously, the student will become an expert in their field, and they will deconstruct their method of thinking into moving forward in a constructive way that will help them to make a contribution to their field. So if we break this down and we look at it in terms of a COCR framework, we confront and we deconstruct and we theorize. But deconstructing, what does it really mean? It means pulling apart the main tenets and examining the practices that have been enshrined as normal and proper, breaking those, deconstructing them, pulling them apart, saying, what are we actually trying to do in a research study? Because you'll know with research, the more research you do, the more of an expert you become in less and less until you know everything about nothing, in a way. But a true expert is somebody that is totally focused on a specific aspect of research. They're not necessarily broad. They may have looked at broad things to get to where they are, but they are very specialized. So deconstruction allows you to become incredibly specialized in what you are doing, and to confront it, and to also theorize. And in confronting, it's also examining difficult or untouchable topics, confronting what are the key issues, telling this in terms of a story. What are the key issues? What are the things that you're trying to find out? Examining difficult or untouchable topics, theorizing, linking the theory to the practice, saying what are the theories that are the most relevant and why are they relevant. So this is the process of storytelling, the COCR framework, and then thinking otherwise, challenging yourself to think outside the dominant frameworks and ideas. And ask your students, I say for postgraduate students, and this was presented by Kerry Smith, get them to go through this process of deconstructing, confronting, theorizing, thinking otherwise. Challenge your students to think outside the dominant frameworks and ideas. Ask them what theories apply to their research and link those theories to practice. Examine the difficult or untouchable topics and then pull apart the main tenets and examine the practices that have been enshrined as normal and proper. So that is very important. So I'm going to say that there's two models in this short presentation that I'm going to share with you. This is the first one, and the second one is the what, so what, now what, which I'm going to cover with you shortly. But if you can take away these two things in terms of storytelling, start off with deconstructing the research problem, confronting it, looking at what theories you can use. So yesterday, for example, I had a master's student asking me, could they use two theories? And of course they can in their study, as long as both theories are relevant and applicable to the research problem. And as long as each theory has something relevant, or they've got something relevant in terms of that theory to share, then they certainly can use two theories. But again, with research, as we progress to doctoral level, remember, you're becoming a specialist in that area. So you don't want to go too broad. You don't want to use too many theories. You want to keep your thinking as focused as you possibly can. You want to keep your research as specialized as you possibly can. And this will allow you to think otherwise and to challenge yourself to think outside the dominant frameworks and ideas within your field. I just want to ask, does anyone have any questions at the moment? Are there any questions?
Colleagues, if you do have a question, just raise a hand, or alternatively type under the chat and I'll notify Dr. Neil that someone has a question. So I don't see a hand at the moment, Doc. You can proceed. I'll let you know if there is a question.
Okay, so then thank you so much. So if we look at this is key to this whole presentation and key to storytelling. What? Selecting data from observations. What? Adding cultural and personal meaning is so what? Making assumptions based on that meaning, drawing conclusions from those assumptions, and adopting beliefs about the world. So there we have what. So in the what, you select data from observations and you look at what are you observing about the research? What is relevant? So you could even ask your tutors to do a research topic around what. You can say, what did we discuss in class today? You could say, what are the key issues that are relevant to your study? And then when you go into the so what, it's about adopting beliefs about the world, drawing conclusions from assumptions, making assumptions based on the meaning, adding cultural and personal meaning. And then the now what is taking actions based on beliefs. So what does it actually mean in terms of your research? The now what? What does it actually mean in terms of the research that you're doing, and how are you solving the problem? So again, I'm going to go back to this method here. The what is actually deconstructing. The so what is confronting and theorizing. And the now what is thinking otherwise. So these two models are linked. Okay, and that's the main short contribution of my talk today. It's not a long talk. I'm just talking very briefly about storytelling as a method of research. So the what is deconstructing. It's going through it exhaustively. What is the student researching? What is the element of research that we are focusing on? The so what is the confronting, examining difficult or untouchable topics, or what is the relevance of what we are studying to our particular topic. It's about linking the theory to the practice. And then the now what is to challenge oneself to think outside the dominant frameworks and ideas. So if you can break it up like this in terms of your storytelling, and when you look at the so what, you can look at open-ended versus closed-ended research. If you're dealing with numbers, you can't alter the numbers, but it can suggest you move to the now what, where you interpret the numbers in a different way. So you interpret what you are saying in a different way. So you go to now what, and you say that, is the glass half full or half empty? Both are correct, but then why are you saying the glass is half empty, or why are you saying the glass is half full? Both are correct, but the interpretation is different. So while you may not be able to change the numbers, you can certainly change the now what. The so what might not be able to change. If we go back to confronting and theorizing, if the theory is set in stone, or there's a theoretical model that is put across in a certain way that cannot be changed, then in the now what, when we think otherwise, we can challenge ourselves to think outside the dominant frameworks and ideas and think of alternative ways of solving the research problem that we have been given. So the think otherwise comes under the now what, and the confronting and theorize comes under the so what, and the what is to deconstruct and pull it all together. So that's kind of the main thing that I wanted to talk about today, breaking it up into that process, encouraging you to use it with your postgraduate students, because if you get a postgraduate student, the most difficult challenge is, where do I start? There's so much to study. And the great paradox, the counterintuitive paradox, is that less is actually more. Becoming a specialist in research is the objective of what you want to achieve with your postgraduate student. So by using this model, you actually get them to look at the what, so what, and now what in a much more focused way, and examine their research much more objectively and much more specifically and much more intuitively and much more expertly. So ironically, the more specialized the research becomes, the more of an expert the student becomes in that topic. So have a look at that and try and apply it as a storytelling technique when you get to your research students. So I'm just going to look at how you would actually unpack the deconstruction stage. You describe and unpack, describe what you heard today, what stood out for you, what are the popular, normal, and proper views about the topic, pulling apart the main ideas and examining practices that have been enshrined as normal and proper, then confronting them, approaching personal, social, and systematic issues head-on by examining difficult, previously thought of, sensitive topics. How do you feel about what you saw and heard? What worries you about what we did today? Are there any challenges or sensitive issues for you as a student related to the topic discussed? Theorize, carefully consider practice at all levels, and question what is the link of the theory to the practice, to the real life. And how does what you've seen and heard in this session link to what you know or have heard before? And then think otherwise. Challenge yourself to think outside the dominant frameworks and ideas and come up with other ways or better ways of practicing or doing things. What insights do you remember? What more would you like to know? And what might you do differently? So here's the process of critical reflection and the questions to be answered. You deconstruct, you confront, you theorize, and you think otherwise. You describe and unpack, you pull apart the main ideas and examine practices that have been enshrined as normal or proper. You confront, you approach personal, social, and systematic issues head on by examining difficult, previously thought of as sensitive topics. You carefully consider, practice at all levels, and question what is the link of the theory to the practice and how what you've seen and heard in the session links to what you know or have heard before. You then think otherwise and challenge yourself to think outside the dominant frameworks and ideas and come up with other ways or better ways of practicing or doing things. What insights do you need to remember? What more would you like to know? And what might you do differently? So this is the process. You actually conceptualize, you apply, you act, and then you reflect. And this was compiled by Andrea Corney. And if you think about it, abstract findings, why did this happen? You revise the theory, you then apply it. Future, what will I do? Then you act on that and say, what is the concrete experience or the facts, what happened? And then the feelings, what did I experience? You assess the behavior and the consequences. So you move from conceptualization, which is abstract conceptualization, to active experimentation. You implement the revised theory. You act on the concrete experience, what happened, the theory of action. You reflect on the observation and you assess the behavior and the consequences. And that's how you implement those steps. So that actually is my last slide. As I said, my presentation is quite short, but I think it has value in terms of you applying those to your students or to your own research study in terms of what you are doing. Because what I've tried to do, the main thing I've tried to do is, especially with this model, is to break up the complex world of research into something simple that you can take away. What, so what, and now what, that you can apply to your students and help them to understand what they are studying and how they can become an expert or a specialist in a small area. So that's kind of my presentation, as short as it was. And that's really what I wanted to say. Now I'm happy to answer questions.
Well, thank you, Doctor, for that very insightful presentation. Colleagues, now it's time for questions. If you do have a question, let me now enable all your mics. Yeah, I have enabled all your mics. So if you do have a question, just raise a hand or just unmute your mic and ask a question. I do have a question for your presentation. When dealing with more complex or technical data, how one can present that into a more or engaging storytelling?
Okay, so with complex data, it's again this that I've got up here. These four things: adopting beliefs about the world. You can break down complex data into drawing conclusions from the assumptions, adopting complex beliefs about the world, making assumptions based on meaning, adding cultural and personal meaning. So it comes under the so what section, breaking down complex data, and it comes specifically under the yellow version of this diagram. If I'm looking here at this, the steps in critical reflection, it comes under confrontation and theorizing, approaching personal, social, and systematic issues head on, examining difficult, previously thought of as sensitive topics, and answering these particular type of questions. So you need to really break the so what down for complex data, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much for that. Colleagues, if you do have a question, just unmute your mic and ask a question. So yeah, or alternatively, just type another chat and then I'll go through some chat and I'll notify Doc that there is a question
Any
under the
questions,
chat.
with pleasure, whatever you think you want to ask. Any questions?
Okay, I'll just play follow up on that one, Doc. In terms of now trying to balance scientific accuracy with engaging storytelling, without losing any momentum or actual fact or findings, how do you go about that?
Oh, it's very difficult because scientific cannot be changed, as I've said. So it comes down to interpretation, and it's based often on the perception of the student. So, the student would view something in a certain way, and that's particularly what I said here. I'm going to show you being open-minded is very important. Having a mindful presence, hearing ourselves through others' ears, and opening up to genuine inquiry. Those are the stages of dealing with storytelling in terms of scientific research. It's really about developing an open mind to different points of view. So while the data cannot be changed, can you explore the data in different ways that it allows you to develop an open mind to the way the data is being presented and the way it's being interpreted, if that makes sense?
Well, yes, it does. Thank you for answering that question. Colleagues, if you do have a question, just unmute your mic
Please
and
ask
ask
whatever
your
you
question.
like.
Yes, that's the time for questions, colleagues. Just unmute your mic. I've enabled all your mics, or alternatively type under the chat, and Dr. Levy will be happy to take your questions.
Any questions?
Yes. Okay, let me just check under the chat if there are any questions. And nothing at the moment. Well, I don't see any questions from the chat
Okay.
as well. Colleagues, if you do have a question or you have an input that you want to contribute, any contribution, we are more happy to take your contribution. So you can just unmute your mic or just type under the chat.
Any
Or
questions
if
at
you
all?
need any clarity. So I see that for now there is no question from the chat. So Doc, I'll just have to bother you, and then
Yes.
because I'm just curious. Now, in terms of using visuals in storytelling, how is that important in your research?
Visuals are very important. I mean, because they express, a picture says 1,000 words. So under the so what, you can bring in visuals, definitely. They
Yes.
express your feelings, your ideas, values. A picture says everything. It's an emotion that can't be described. So absolutely. Visuals are very important in storytelling, especially when describing images or preferences or perceptions. So definitely visuals are important. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that. And there is no limitation to say now you have used too much of visuals rather than text.
Again, it depends. This is the important guideline for research. Less is more. So simplifying. So we say what, so what, now what. It's simplified. And I'm saying with visuals, don't use too many because again, you're going to create that sense of confusion. Try and narrow it down. Which visual will make the biggest impact to the study or the audience, what will have the greatest impact, rather than trying to use too many visuals, which causes confusion. Remember what I said before, research must illustrate a specialized approach at a specialized level. It gets narrower and narrower and narrower. You know more and more and more and more about less and less and less until you become an expert at virtually nothing. But you are an expert at something very minor, but a total expert at that. And then that research builds onto other research, which builds onto other research, but it all starts off with simplicity. And that's what I'm saying. Try to, the whole concept, Japanese, they use simplicity in everything. And so do the French and the Spanish, minimalism. And that's certainly applies. You can do so much research on minimalism. It certainly applies to postgraduate study. Less is more. By simplifying what you are doing, the visuals that you are using, you have a greater impact with your audience.
Yes.
Rather than using too much.
And do you have any tips probably for early career researchers who want to develop their storytelling skills effectively? So any recommendation for them, someone who wants to improve?
Definitely. So I'm saying use the what, so what, now what to practice your storytelling skills, develop a simple approach to what the impact that you are saying will make amongst your target audience. What is the contribution? And then also use it in terms of even creating a story out of your research where you can become an effective contributor to society by contributing an aspect out of your research and presenting that and learning how to present it and become well known for that particular area of research that you are presenting.
Okay. No, I get it. I see the hand from
Yes.
Dr. David. Dr. David, you can go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Levy. Thank you for your presentation. Apologies if this has been answered already. I'm just having a bit of issue with my Wi-Fi at the moment. But
Okay.
in terms of storytelling techniques, I know we've spoken about in terms of your research presentations, but how important do you feel it is in order for us to translate this across in almost every area of academia? Because at the end of the day, we don't just want, well, whatever research we're doing, we want it to be as easily and widely accessible as possible. So how important do you think it is, and how do we go about doing this? I think if we can look at it from the point of academic writing, merging the two together seems to be something that many of us have issues with. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think you can actually integrate it into undergraduate teaching as well and your tutorials. And then take it right through to doctoral level. I think that it shouldn't be something that's solely used for research, but it could be used as a, learning tool. So what, now what could be used as a learning tool for an entire course. And it would certainly help the students to simplify their thinking and their understanding of that course. So I would suggest it could be implemented within undergraduate teaching as well at the university, if that makes sense. And tutorials.
No, it does. Thank you. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I think because a lot of undergraduate students are also concerned that there's too much information and I don't know where to start. I don't know what to study. I'm just saying this off the top of my head. You could design your whole course around what, so what, and now what. And your test could be what, so what, now what. Your quiz could be what, so what, now what. You could have class presentations on what, so what, now what. And you become an absolute expert on really unpacking the subject and reflecting, because students have so much opportunity to plagiarize with AI that you could use these as presentations in the classes. You could say, right, sit with a tutor during an undergraduate class and use what, so what, now what. If let's just hypothetically say you're lecturing about AI, you can say, what is AI? And then the students have to answer it in their own words. So what are the implications of AI for, careers? And now what are the solutions, and what will you do to find a career in this challenging path? So you could, and tell the students that they can't use their phones. So it would minimize plagiarism if you implemented this in undergraduate study as well, and not relied so much on, written assignments or Moodle or things like that. I'm just suggesting it as a possibility.
Definitely, Doc. Sorry, Mr. Nkosi. Just to follow up, I think that's quite an important point that you raised, because in terms of when we look at the progression from students from undergrad moving on to their higher degrees, in terms of their writing, that's one of the major issues that they do have. I know that obviously we provide them with templates and guidelines in terms of academic writing, but sometimes the writing comes across as it doesn't come across as a story or as we would want. So I think it's a good idea if we could try to implement that. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I just think it also teaches the students to think. And that's the difficulty with teaching, is how do we teach our students to become independent thinkers? It's so difficult because they've got so much access to AI that they can just get AI to do everything for them. And it's very difficult for us to find out if they've used AI, although we can see it in their work and they have access to it. So it could be a method of assessment, and you could get undergraduate students to write a closed book test using what, so what, and now what, which is just critical reflection, or deconstructing thinking and theorizing, which is just critical reflection. And, it would encourage their thinking, creativity.
Thank you for that, Doc. There is a comment under Q&A from Dr. Tandiwa. The what, so what, then what really explains the steps in research and the storytelling, therefore, for qualitative research. It was just a comment from Dr. Tandiwa as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely.
And then now, Doc, in terms of trying to present probably in a different audience or trying to accommodate certain audience, how do you change that? Let's say I'm presenting the same research, but now to the experts, probably to the general public, the following month or so.
I don't think you necessarily have to change it, because I think they're very general questions and it's up to the recipient how they wish to respond. So I don't think you really have to change it. I think you can leave the questions as is. That's my personal opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. for that. Colleagues, if you do have a question, just raise a hand or just unmute your mic and ask a question, or alternatively, just type under the chat. We will go through your questions. So, yeah, I see that there are no further questions from the chat or from the Q&A. Let me just go through this. Okay, another comment from Dr. Tandiwe. I think it's a question now. Thank you, Doc, for your presentation. What is your opinion regarding how our cultural storytelling norms might influence how we use storytelling in research presentations?
Well, I didn't hear what you said.
What is your opinion regarding how our cultural storytelling norms might influence how we use storytelling in research presentations?
Well, I'm just giving you an idea. With research presentations, sometimes the student's culture might impact on how they write. You may even, I'm just giving you an idea for if you had an undergraduate class, ask them to, demonstrate what is their culture through a dance or something like that, and write up about it. So I'm not sure if I'm even answering your question, but your culture has an impact on what you are writing. It certainly does play a role or have an impact on what you say and what you are writing. Because it's the framework, it's how you see the world around you. So it certainly does have that effect. So you may, if you're lecturing on culture, get students to demonstrate their culture, to learn more about their culture. For example, in a media class we asked the students to, do something that was very relevant to their own cultural background, as an example.
Yeah, thank you. That question was from Dr. Iseri. Dr. Iseri, can you just confirm if you were answered by Dr. Levy?
Yes, I'm okay. Okay, thank you, Doc.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, colleagues. I don't know if we still have questions. But I see that we still have time. If you do have a question, just unmute your mic or just write under the chat or under the Q&A, and we will attend to your question. Okay, I see that there are no questions at the moment. Colleagues, thank you for your attendance and thank you to our facilitator, Dr. Nell. Thank you so much for taking your time and providing us with such a very insightful and informative session. We do hope and believe that our participants have learned something and they will share with their students or with other colleagues who didn't join us. Remember, the recording will be shared to the RCT management system or to your respective model communities, which is the supervisor community as well as the PDRF community. I have shared under the chair the feedback. It helps us in terms of improving our service delivery, as well as to give feedback to our facilitators for taking their time so that they can evaluate and see the impact they are making through providing these workshops to all the postgraduates as large from postgraduate student, support staff, academic staff, and PDRF, and all to the researchers. So we use that feedback and also to give feedback to our facilitators, as well as for reporting purposes, as well as for us to see where we can improve as a unit in terms of providing future workshops or trainings. So also the feedback also ensures that you get the certificate of attendance of this workshop. So we'll draw or take your data from that feedback and generate a certificate, and then we'll share with you at a later stage. So remember that the colleagues who attended all the workshops for April, the certificate will be shared or will be sent by the end of this week. So don't panic if you didn't receive any certificate for April, the certificate will be shared. However, if you didn't receive a certificate for March and Feb, and you did attend any of the workshop, email us on supervision course with the title of the workshop you attended, the date of the workshop, as well as your full details, which include your title, your full name, as well as your staff number or student number. That is where we can generate your certificate. And also, if you are joining workshop, please make sure you do register so that we keep track or we record all your information. In the absence of questions, I don't know if someone has a question before I can officially close the session. Dr. Nell, do you have any last word before we can close the session?
So my last word is just to simplify what you are saying. I think the learning process, I find tremendous insight in minimalism as a theory and applying it to the what, so what, now what. And I think that the what, so what, now what encourages us to really go into deep issues there in a very focused way and gives us a bird's eye view of this of the course. And I think that is what's missing a lot in academia. I think students are battling to whether undergraduate or postgraduate are battling to really make sense of their learning journey. So my last words to everybody is use minimalism. Simplify what you are telling your students. Simplify their learning journey for them. Help them to discover the gems of their own individual learning journeys through your course, through applying the what, so what, now framework, and allow them to critically reflect on that as they progress through their course. And I think if you do that, both you and the students will enjoy the learning process a lot more. So my final words are less is more. Unpack, discover, and really go on the learning journey with your students together. Make it a mutual learning journey, because we, as lecturers, we're both students and teachers simultaneously. We're not just teachers. And I think for me, one of the greatest things of lecturing is that I'm learning all the time. So by mutually learning and discovering new things, our journey becomes a much more satisfying, fulfilling one, and a much more valuable one for everyone.
Well, thank you for that, Dr. Nell. I don't think someone has a question. Okay, let me check under the chat. I see there's a question. Oh, it was a decent and insightful presentation that dealt with practical issues. Well done, colleague. Thank you. That colleague is 1-2. That 1-2. Can you please send us your details, which includes your title, your full name, and student or staff number, so that we can generate a certificate? Because if the user is like this, that is whereby we will find cases someone will say, I didn't get a certificate. So, colleague, kindly send us your details so that when we issue certificates, we will get your full details. Thank you, colleagues. I don't know if we still have questions or any comment or any input or contribution you want to make before we can officially close.
Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Neil. We really appreciate your time you have taken to give us this good presentation for today. Colleagues will share the recording in about 3 days, as well as the presentation. Because I already have the presentation, I will upload the presentation today. However, the recording will be available probably by Friday. Yeah, and then you can access the recording in your respective model communities as well as the RCPMS. Thank you, Dr. Neil, once again. Thank you.
Thank you
We
so
really
much.
appreciate your time and your effort in preparing this wonderful presentation. We look forward to having you probably in more other presentations. This was very insightful and very informative.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Well, with that being said, colleagues, thank you for joining as well. We really appreciate your attendance. I see the comment from Dr. Uchena. It was very enlightening. I learned quite some tips on how to make research practices more humanistic and animating. Thank you, Dr. Uchena, for that comment. With that being said, colleagues, I can now officially end the session. We look forward to having you in other upcoming workshops for next week. I don't think we do have another workshop for this week. So we have other workshops for next week. We will send communication or announcement for those workshops. We kindly request you, colleagues, to register for those workshops before you can join in, for us to have your full details when it's time to issue certificate of attendance. Thank you once again, colleagues, and Dr. Nell. We really appreciate your attendance today and your presentation, Dr. Nell. Thank you so much. You can have a great day further. I'm now officially closing the session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.